The blade stopped 3 inches from Princess Valara's throat. She couldn't see it, but she felt the displacement of air, heard the assassin's breathing shift from confident to confused. The human servant standing behind her chair had moved faster than any creature in the Zatharian Empire should have been able to move. The metallic clang of deflected weapons echoed through the royal chamber. "Your Highness, down," Connor Hayes said, his voice impossibly calm. Valara dropped from her seat as energy blasts tore through the space where her head had been. She heard Connor's feet pivot on the marble floor, heard the whisper of his stolen guard blade cutting through air, then the wet sound of it finding flesh. 3 bodies hit the ground in rapid succession. The princess pressed her back against the ornate chair. Her sensory tendrils extended to their maximum range, painting a crude map of violence in her mind through vibrations and air currents. 4 more coming through the east entrance, she whispered. Her species had evolved past eyes millions of years ago, developing far superior senses. But those senses couldn't pierce walls or see around corners. That's what made her weak. That's what made her a target. Connor's hand found her shoulder. "Can you walk?" "Of course I can walk," she snapped. "I'm blind, not crippled. Then we run." Now, he pulled her forward, and she let him guide her, trusting his eyes completely. It was a strange thing, trust. For 17 years she had been alone in her vast palace, surrounded by thousands who served her, and not one who saw her as anything but a liability. The blind princess, the broken heir, the Zatharian Empire's greatest shame. Connor had arrived 6 months ago, part of a human delegation offering their species services to the Empire. Humans were considered primitive, barely worthy of notice. They still used their eyes, relied on light like insects. But Connor had done something no Zatharian had ever managed. He had made her feel safe. They burst into the service corridor, and Connor yanked her left, then right, then through a doorway she didn't recognize by feel. She heard the assassins behind them shouting in the harsh clicks of the military caste. Her own people trying to kill her, probably sent by her uncle, the regent who desperately wanted her throne. "Stairs down," Connor warned. 12 steps. She counted them in her head as they descended. This was deeper than she'd ever been in the palace. The air smelled of rust and stagnant water. Ancient maintenance tunnels, perhaps, from when the palace had first been constructed. "Why are you doing this?" she asked between breaths. "You could let them have me, collect whatever reward my uncle offered." Connor stopped so suddenly she collided with his back. He turned, and she felt his hands on both her shoulders, steadying her. "Your Highness, I didn't come here for money." "Then why?" "Because Earth sent me to protect you. Because our intelligence said you're the only member of the royal family who doesn't want to go to war with the Terran Federation. Because you're worth protecting." Footsteps echoed from above. Connor pulled her forward again, deeper into the darkness that meant nothing to her, but everything to him. For the first time in her life, Valara understood what it meant to not be alone. She had found her eyes, and those eyes belonged to a human who refused to abandon her. The tunnel stretched ahead into uncertainty, and somewhere behind them, her enemies closed in. But Connor's hand was steady in hers, and that changed everything. The darkness of the maintenance tunnels would have been absolute to most species. Valara could sense the rough walls through vibration, could feel the slight changes in air pressure that indicated turns and obstacles, but she couldn't see danger hiding in ambush positions. She couldn't see if they were walking into a trap. That required eyes, and Connor's were the only ones she trusted. They had been running for nearly an hour. Her lungs burned with the unfamiliar exertion. Royal princesses weren't trained for physical endurance. They were trained in politics, diplomacy, and the complex sensory meditation techniques that allowed Xetharians to perceive the world without sight. But those techniques couldn't help her now. "Stop here," Connor whispered. His breathing was barely elevated. Humans might be primitive in technology, but their physical capabilities were unsettling. "We need to talk about what happens next." Valara leaned against the cold tunnel wall, her chest heaving. "What happens next is my uncle's assassins find us and kill us both, unless you have a brilliant plan hidden somewhere." "I do, actually." She heard him shifting, probably checking his stolen weapons. "But you're not going to like it. I already don't like being hunted through sewers by my own family. Tell me." Connor was silent for a moment. Then he said, "We need to get you off this planet. Earth will grant you asylum." Valara's sensory tendrils went rigid with shock. "Asylum? I'm the crown princess of the Xetharian Empire. I don't need asylum from humans. Your Highness, with respect, your empire is trying to murder you. Your uncle has already convinced the High Council that you're unfit to rule because of your blindness. He's staging a coup, and you being alive is the only thing stopping him from claiming the throne legally." "I know all of this," Valara said sharply. "But running to Earth, that would prove everything he said about me. That I'm weak, that I'm unworthy, that humans have manipulated me. Better to be alive and called weak than dead and called nothing at all." She wanted to argue, but footsteps echoed from somewhere behind them. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. Connor's hand found hers again. "We move. This conversation isn't finished." They ran deeper into the tunnels. Valara tried to maintain her mental map of their route, but the turns and descents became too numerous. She was lost in her own palace. The humiliation stung worse than the physical exhaustion. "There's a service exit ahead," Connor said. "Opens into the eastern gardens, about 200 yards from the palace wall. After that, it's half a mile to where I have a transport hidden." "You planned this," Valara realized. "You knew this would happen. I prepared for possibilities." "Earth intelligence isn't stupid. We've been watching the political situation here for months. Your uncle's been consolidating power, removing your supporters from key positions, spreading propaganda about your disability. This assassination attempt was inevitable." The tunnel began to slope upward. Valara could feel fresh air on her face, could sense the space opening up ahead. The exit was close, but so were the assassins. She could hear them now, their movements echoing through the tunnels behind her. Connor stopped at what must have been the exit. She heard the grind of metal on metal, a door unsealing. "When we go through this door, I need you to run straight ahead. Don't stop, don't hesitate. I'll be right behind you. What are you going to do?" "Buy us time. Now go." He pushed her forward and she stumbled into sudden open space. The gardens. She could feel the grass under her feet, could sense the massive trees that had stood here for centuries. She ran, trusting Connor's directions, trusting that straight ahead was safe. Behind her, she heard the door slam shut. Then came the sounds of fighting. Energy weapons discharging, the crash of bodies hitting metal. Connor was holding them off alone, giving her time to escape. The thought filled her with a rage she'd never felt before. She was so tired of being the one who needed protecting, so tired of being helpless. But she kept running, because stopping would make his sacrifice meaningless. She had gone perhaps 50 yards when she heard footsteps behind her. Fast, but not military fast. Connor's footsteps. He caught up to her, grabbed her hand and pulled her sharply left. "They're going to flank us through the garden's north gate," he said, breathing harder now. "We need to reach the wall before they cut us off." How many did you kill? 4. 8 more coming. 8 trained Zetharian soldiers against 1 human. The mathematics weren't favorable. But Connor didn't slow down, didn't sound afraid. He just kept moving, kept guiding her through a world she couldn't see. They reached the palace wall. Connor lifted her up, and she felt the rough stone under her hands. She'd never climbed anything in her life. Her tendrils found cracks and holes, and she pulled herself upward, her muscles screaming in protest. Connor climbed beside her, occasionally adjusting her hand placement, keeping her from falling. The wall was 30 feet high. Halfway up, she heard shouts from the garden below. The assassins had found them. Energy blasts hit the wall around them, sending stone chips flying. One caught her arm, drawing blood. She gasped but didn't stop climbing. Connor was above her now, reaching down. 3 more feet. You can do this. She could. She had to. Her fingers found the top of the wall, and Connor hauled her up and over. They dropped together into the forest beyond, landing in a tangle of limbs and leaves. Pain shot through her ankle, but she bit back the cry. "Can you walk?" Connor asked. "I can run," she said through gritted teeth. "Where's your transport? 1/2 a mile west? Can you make it?" "I have to." They ran through the forest, and Valara felt something shift inside her. She had spent her entire life being carried, being guided, being protected because of her blindness. But right now, injured and hunted, she was choosing to fight. She was choosing to survive, not because she was a princess, but because she refused to let her uncle win. Connor's transport was a small atmospheric craft, hidden under camouflage netting. He helped her inside and fired up the engines. Within seconds, they were airborne, leaving the palace behind. Valara sat in the co-pilot seat, trying to process what had just happened. She had fled her home. She was a fugitive now. Everything she'd known, everything she'd planned for her future, had evaporated in the span of 2 hours. "I can't go to Earth," she said quietly. "If I do, my uncle wins. He'll claim the throne, and there will be war." Connor didn't respond immediately. The craft hummed around them, climbing higher into the atmosphere. Finally, he said, "Then we don't go to Earth. Not yet." "What do you mean?" "Your uncle's power comes from the High Council supporting him. He's convinced them you're unfit to rule. But what if we prove them wrong?" Valara turned toward him, her tendrils focusing on his voice. "How do we do that? I can't even see." "You don't need to see," Connor said. "You need allies. You need proof that your uncle is behind these assassination attempts. And you need to show the Empire that being blind doesn't make you weak. That's impossible." "No, Your Highness. That's just difficult. And difficult is something humans specialize in." The craft broke through the cloud layer, and Valara felt the thin air of the upper atmosphere. She was leaving everything she knew behind. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't alone in the darkness. She had Connor. She had hope, and she had a plan, however impossible it seemed. The war for her throne was just beginning. Connor piloted the craft toward the outer territories, regions of the Zetharian Empire where her uncle's influence was weakest. They flew low over crystalline forests and vast fungal plains, staying beneath sensor range. Valara sat in silence, processing the magnitude of what had happened. She was no longer in her palace. She was no longer safe behind walls of tradition and protocol. She was in the wild, dependent entirely on a human she barely knew. "Tell me about yourself," she said finally. "If you're going to be my eyes, I should know who you are." Connor was quiet for a moment. "Not much to tell. I grew up on a colony world called New Perth. Joined Earth's Diplomatic Security Corps when I was 20. They trained me in protection details for high-risk assignments. Your planet was my third major posting. That's the official version, Valara said. What's the real version? She heard him shift in his seat. The real version is that I volunteered for this assignment. Earth intelligence knew the political situation here was deteriorating. They needed someone who could blend in, who could get close to you without raising suspicion. Someone expendable. You're not expendable to me. I am to Earth's government. That's how these things work, Your Highness. I'm a chess piece. A useful one, but still just a piece. Valara extended her sensory tendrils toward him, reading the micro-vibrations of his body language. Humans were terrible at hiding their emotions. Their hearts beat faster when they lied. Their breathing changed when they were uncomfortable. Connor was telling the truth, but there was something else there. A bitterness, a resignation. You don't like being expendable, she said. Nobody does, but it's the job. The craft began to descend. Connor brought them down in a remote area, landing near a cluster of buildings that Valara's senses told her were old, possibly abandoned. Industrial structures from the Empire's expansion era left to decay when the resources ran out. We'll hide here for a few days, Connor said, helping her out of the craft. I have contacts in the outer territories, people who aren't loyal to your uncle. We'll reach out to them, start building a network. The building Connor led her into smelled of rust and stagnant air. She heard small creatures scurrying away from their footsteps. He guided her to a room with relatively intact walls and helped her sit on what felt like an old cargo container. I need to check your injuries, he said. Your arm is still bleeding and you're favoring your left ankle. I'm fine. You're not fine. Let me help. She extended her arm and she felt his hands, gentle but efficient, cleaning and bandaging the wound on her arm. Then he knelt and examined her ankle. His touch was professional, clinical, but there was care in it. She wasn't used to being touched with care. Sprained, not broken, he said. You'll need to stay off it as much as possible for a few days. I don't have a few days. My uncle will be consolidating his position right now. Every hour I'm gone, he gets stronger. And if you push too hard and injure yourself worse, you'll be useless. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we start planning. Valara wanted to argue, but exhaustion was catching up to her. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind only pain and weariness. I've never slept anywhere but my chamber in the palace, she said quietly. I don't know if I can sleep here. Then I'll stay awake. Someone should keep watch anyway. Connor. She reached out, and her hand found his shoulder. Why are you really doing this? The truth, this time. She felt him tense under her touch. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he said, because 3 years ago, I failed to protect someone, a dignitary on a station in the Outer Rim. I was assigned to her security detail. I missed the signs that an attack was coming. She died, and I lived. I've been trying to make up for that ever since. You can't bring her back by saving me. I know, but maybe I can stop making the same mistake. Valara felt something crack open inside her chest. She'd spent her whole life surrounded by people who saw her as a burden, a problem to be managed or eliminated. But Connor saw her as someone worth saving. Not because of duty or protocol, but because he had failed before and refused to fail again. What was her name? Valara asked. Liu Mei. She was a trade negotiator. 26 years old. She loved music and terrible coffee. Tell me about her. And so Connor did. As the alien night deepened around them, he told her about Liu Mei, about the station where she'd died, about the guilt that had driven him across the galaxy to this assignment. Valara listened, her sensory tendrils picking up every nuance of emotion in his voice. Pain, regret, determination. When he finished, she said, "I won't let you fail again. We'll get through this together." "Your Highness, you can't promise that." "Yes, I can. Because I'm done being helpless. I'm done letting other people decide my fate. If my uncle wants my throne, he'll have to take it from me. And I have you to help me see what's coming." Connor was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Then we'd better start planning, because taking down a regent who controls the High Council isn't going to be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is." They spent the rest of the night talking strategy. Connor had been gathering intelligence on her uncle's operations for months. He had names of sympathetic nobles, locations of hidden weapons caches, and communication codes for resistance cells that had formed in opposition to her uncle's increasing authoritarianism. The Empire was more fractured than Valara had realized. Her uncle's power wasn't absolute. It was maintained through fear and careful manipulation. "The key is proof," Connor said as dawn approached. "If we can prove he ordered your assassination, the High Council will have to act. Regicide is still the greatest crime in your culture, even attempted regicide. Getting proof means getting close to his inner circle. That means going back to the capital. Eventually, yes, but not yet. First, we need allies. Real ones. People who will stand with you when the time comes." Valara thought about the nobles she knew, the ones who had visited her over the years. Most had been uncomfortable around her, uncertain how to interact with a blind princess, but a few had been different. Lord Kessian, who had taught her tactical theory through sensory simulations. Lady Thrain, who had never treated her disability as a weakness. General Paxton, the human military attaché who had been her father's friend. "I know people," she said, "people who might help, but contacting them is dangerous. My uncle will be monitoring all communications. Let me worry about that. I have ways to get messages out that your uncle's people won't detect. Human encryption is more sophisticated than most species give us credit for." As the sun rose over the alien landscape, Valara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. For so long she'd been a passive figure, waiting for her coronation day, going through the motions of royal education while everyone around her whispered about her unfitness to rule. But now she was fighting. She was taking action. And it felt right. "Connor," she said, "when this is over, when I have my throne back, I want you to stay. Not as a servant, as an advisor, someone I can trust. Your Highness, your people would never accept a human in your inner circle. Then my people will have to learn to accept change, because you've already proven more loyal to me than most of my own kind." She heard him stand and walk to the window. "We should get some rest. Tomorrow we start reaching out to your allies. It's going to be a long fight." "I know, but I'm ready for it." She wasn't sure if that was true, but she was going to make it true. She had spent 17 years being the blind princess, the broken heir, the weakness in the royal line. Now she would become something else. She would become the warrior queen her people needed, even if they didn't know it yet. And she would do it with a human by her side, a human who had become her eyes, her shield, and her friend. The war for her throne had begun, and Valara was done being a victim. The Outer Territories had always been wild places. Here, the Empire's law was more suggestion than command, and loyalty was measured in practical terms rather than bloodlines. Connor's contacts were scattered across 3 different settlements, each one a careful day's journey from the last. For 2 weeks they moved from place to place, meeting in secret with nobles and merchants and military officers, who had grown tired of her uncle's increasingly authoritarian rule. Valara learned to navigate without palace walls around her. Connor taught her to read her environment more aggressively, to use her sensory tendrils not just to avoid obstacles but to detect threats. She learned to move quietly, to fight when necessary, to survive on processed rations instead of palace cuisine. Her body grew stronger, her mind grew sharper, and her resolve became unbreakable. Their first major ally was Lord Kessian, who controlled 3 resource-rich moons in the outer system. He met them in an abandoned mining facility, his guards surrounding them until Connor proved their identity with codes only Earth intelligence would know. "Princess," Kessian said, his voice heavy with the resonance of deep-cast Zetharians. "When I heard about the assassination attempt, I feared the worst. Your uncle announced you were in seclusion, recovering from a nervous collapse." "A convenient lie," Valara said. "He tried to kill me, Lord Kessian. His assassins were palace guards. This wasn't some random attack. It was a coordinated attempt to remove me from the line of succession." "I believe you, but belief isn't proof. The High Council demands evidence, especially when accusing a regent of treason." "Then we'll get evidence," Connor said. "But first we need to know where you stand. Will you support Princess Valara's claim to the throne?" Kessian was quiet for a long moment. Valara could sense his tension, the way his breathing changed as he weighed his options. Supporting her was dangerous. It meant declaring himself an enemy of the regent. It meant risking everything. "I will," he said finally. "Not because of loyalty to the bloodline, but because your uncle is driving us toward war with the Terran Federation. He sees humanity as weak, as something to be conquered and exploited. He doesn't understand what you do, Princess. He doesn't understand that humans are far more dangerous than they appear." "Thank you," Valara said. "We'll need your resources. Ships, weapons, communication networks, everything you can spare. You'll have them. But, Princess, you need more than resources. You need to show the Empire that you're capable of ruling. Your uncle's propaganda has been effective. Many believe you're too weak, too dependent on others to lead. Then I'll prove them wrong." Their network grew slowly but steadily. Lady Thrain joined them, bringing with her the loyalty of several influential merchant guilds. General Paxton, the human military attaché, provided tactical advice and access to Earth's intelligence on her uncle's military movements. A dozen minor nobles pledged their support, each one bringing ships, soldiers, and information. But the evidence they needed remained elusive. Her uncle was careful. His orders were given verbally, his assassins were fanatically loyal, and his inner circle was impenetrable. They needed someone on the inside, someone close to the regent who could provide proof of his treachery. The opportunity came from an unexpected source. One of Connor's Earth intelligence contacts made contact with a message that changed everything. Commander Vex, head of the Palace Guard and the man who had personally led the assassination attempt, wanted to defect. "It's obviously a trap," Connor said when they received the message. They were on Lord Kessian's flagship now, hiding in the outer system while they planned their next move. "Vex is your uncle's right hand. He wouldn't turn against him without a reason. The message says his daughter was collateral damage in one of my uncle's purges," Valara said, reading the translated text through her sensory interface. She spoke out against the coming war. She was arrested, tried for treason, and executed. All within 48 hours. That could be fabricated, a story designed to make us trust him. It could be, but if it's true, Vex has access to everything we need: communication logs, order transcripts, financial records, everything. Connor paced across the room. She could hear his footsteps, feel the tension radiating from him. If we agree to meet him and it's a trap, we lose everything. You'll be captured, probably executed publicly to legitimize your uncle's claim to the throne. And if we don't take the risk, we stay in hiding forever. My uncle consolidates his power, starts his war with Earth, and thousands die. Millions, maybe. There has to be another way. Name it. Connor stopped pacing. I can't. But that doesn't mean walking into a trap is smart. Valara stood, using her sensory tendrils to navigate to where Connor stood. She placed her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat, rapid and strong. You've kept me alive when everyone else wanted me dead. I trust your instincts, but I need you to trust mine. Something about this feels real. Your Highness, feelings aren't intelligence. No, but they're not nothing either. My species evolved past sight, Connor. We developed other senses, other ways of understanding the world. I can feel when someone is lying, when they're afraid, when they're telling the truth. And this message, this plea from Vex, it resonates as genuine. Connor covered her hand with his. If you're wrong, I won't be able to protect you. I know, but I'm not wrong. They arranged the meeting for neutral ground, a decommissioned trading station in the border territories. Vex came alone, as agreed, though Connor's sensors detected at least 3 cloaked ships nearby, ready to spring the trap if this was indeed an ambush. Valara sensed Vex the moment he entered the station. He moved like a soldier, controlled and precise, but there was something else in his gait. Grief, rage, guilt, all the emotions of a man who had lost everything. "Commander," she said, "thank you for coming." "Princess." His voice was rough, like gravel grinding together. "I didn't think you'd agree to meet. I wouldn't have in your position." "Then why did you ask?" "Because I need you to kill him. I need you to take back your throne and make my daughter's death mean something." Connor stepped forward, positioning himself between Valara and Vex. "You led the assassination attempt. You tried to kill her. I did. I followed orders, like a good soldier. And while I was following orders, my daughter was speaking truth to power. She said the war your uncle wants is madness. She said humans aren't the weak prey species he believes them to be. She said it publicly, in the Grand Forum, where everyone could hear. 3 hours later, she was arrested. 2 days later, she was dead. Valara extended her senses, reading Vex's emotional state. The grief was overwhelming, genuine, raw. This wasn't a performance. This was a man who had lost the only thing he cared about. "What do you have for us?" she asked. "Everything. Communication logs showing your uncle coordinating the assassination. Financial records showing bribes paid to High Council members. Military deployment orders for the invasion of Terran space, and a recording of him admitting all of it to his inner circle." Why would he record that? He didn't. I did. I've been recording everything in the command center for months. Insurance, in case he ever turned on me. I never thought I'd actually need it. Connor moved closer to Vex, his hand on his weapon. "How do we know this is real? How do we know you haven't fabricated all of it?" "You don't, but you can verify it. The communication logs have timestamps and authentication codes. The financial records can be cross-referenced with banking systems. The recording has your uncle's voice print, which can be analyzed for authenticity. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to use the evidence." Valara made her decision. "Give us the data. We'll verify it. If it's genuine, you'll have your revenge." Vex handed over a data crystal, and Connor immediately began analyzing it on his portable terminal. Minutes passed in silence while he worked, checking timestamps, verifying codes, running audio analysis on the recording. Finally, he looked up. It's real, he said quietly. All of it. This is everything we need. Valara felt something surge through her chest. Hope, vindication, power. Then we go to the High Council. We present the evidence. We end this. It won't be that simple, Vex said. Your uncle has sympathizers on the council. They'll claim the evidence is fabricated, that humans helped you create false documents. You need more than proof. You need legitimacy. You need to show the Empire that you're strong enough to rule. How do I do that? You challenge him, formally. A trial of succession, in front of the entire High Council and the assembled nobles of the Empire. It's your right as Crown Princess. He can't refuse without admitting he has something to hide. Connor shook his head. A trial of succession is a formal duel. Your Highness, you can't fight. You're blind. Then I'll fight blind, Valara said. Vex, will you train me? The commander was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I trained your father. I can train you, but Princess, your uncle is a master duelist. He's killed 3 challengers in formal trials. The odds aren't in your favor. The odds have never been in my favor. That hasn't stopped me yet. They returned to Keshen's flagship, and Valara's training began. Vex was a brutal teacher, pushing her far beyond what she thought were her limits. He taught her to use her sensory tendrils aggressively, to predict movements before they happened, to turn her blindness from a weakness into an advantage. Zetharian dueling relied heavily on visual feints and misdirection, but those techniques were useless against someone who couldn't see them. Connor watched the training sessions, occasionally offering suggestions from human combat techniques. Valara learned to blend Zetharian martial forms with human tactical thinking, creating a fighting style that was uniquely her own. After 3 weeks of intensive training, Vex declared her ready. You'll never be as technically skilled as your uncle, but you're unpredictable. You fight in ways he won't expect. That's your advantage. Use it. They sent the formal challenge to the High Council, along with copies of Vex's evidence. The response came within hours. Her uncle accepted the challenge. The trial of succession would take place in 7 days, in the Grand Arena, broadcast across the entire Empire. He thinks he can kill you and claim it was legitimate combat, Connor said. That's his plan. Then his plan is flawed, Valara replied, because I'm going to win. Your Highness, the statistics don't support that confidence. Connor, stop thinking like a human for a moment. Think like me. I've been blind my entire life. I've been underestimated, dismissed, and targeted for assassination. But I'm still here. I'm still fighting, and I'm not going to lose now. Connor was quiet for a moment. Then he said, What do you need from me? I need you to be there. I need you to be my eyes one last time. After that, I'll prove I can stand on my own. The days before the trial passed quickly. Valara spent her time meditating, refining her techniques, and preparing mentally for what was coming. She would face her uncle in single combat, in front of the entire Empire. She would either reclaim her throne or die trying. The night before the trial, Connor found her on the observation deck of Kessian's flagship. She was standing at the viewport, her sensory tendrils extended toward the stars she couldn't see, but could feel through the subtle vibrations of space. Can't sleep? He asked. I'm too nervous to sleep. What if I'm wrong, Connor? What if I'm not strong enough? He stood beside her. Then you'll die a warrior instead of a victim. That's better than most people manage. I don't want to die at all. Then don't. Fight like hell and survive. It's what you've been doing since the day I met you. She turned toward him, and for the first time since this all began, she allowed herself to be vulnerable. I'm scared. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Use it. She reached out and found his hand. If I don't survive tomorrow, I want you to know that you saved me, not just from the assassins. You saved me from giving up. Thank you. Your Highness, you're going to survive. I refuse to accept any other outcome. Your refusal doesn't change reality. No, but it does change how we approach it. So stop thinking about dying and start thinking about winning. She squeezed his hand, then released it. You're right. I've come too far to give up now. The next morning, they traveled to the capital under formal truce. The grand arena was packed with thousands of spectators, nobles and commoners alike, all gathered to watch the blind princess challenge the regent. The air was electric with anticipation and tension. Valara stood in the challenger's chamber, feeling her heart hammer against her ribs. Connor stood beside her, checking her weapons one final time. The traditional Zetharian dueling blades, perfectly balanced, their edges sharp enough to cut through steel. Remember, Connor said, he'll try to intimidate you first. He'll circle, he'll posture, he'll try to get inside your head. Don't let him. Focus on his movements, on the patterns. Everyone has patterns. I know. And if it goes bad, if you're losing, there's no shame in surrender. You can withdraw from the trial and we'll find another way. There is no other way. This is it. The call came. It was time. Connor walked her to the arena entrance, and for a moment they just stood there, human and alien, servant and princess, friends who had been forged in the fire of impossible circumstances. I'll be watching, Connor said. And princess, you've got this. Valara stepped into the arena, and the crowd's roar washed over her like a physical force. She couldn't see them, couldn't see her uncle waiting in the center of the arena, couldn't see the High Council in their elevated seats, but she could feel it all, the weight of expectation, the hunger for spectacle, the doubt that permeated the very air. She walked forward, her blades ready, her senses extended to their absolute limit, and when her uncle spoke, his voice dripping with contempt, she didn't flinch. Poor blind Valara, he said. This is where your delusion ends. This is where you learn that the throne belongs to the strong, not the defective. She didn't respond. She just moved into position, centered herself, and prepared to fight. The marshal called for combat to begin, and Valara showed the Empire what a blind princess could do when she refused to stay down. The first strike came fast. Valara sensed the displacement of air, the vibration of her uncle's footsteps shifting weight, the subtle change in atmospheric pressure as his blade descended. She moved left, the weapon missing her by inches, and countered with a low sweep aimed at his legs. He jumped back, surprised. Lucky, he said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. They circled each other, and Valara extended her sensory tendrils to their maximum range. She couldn't see him, but she could read him. Every breath, every shift of weight, every micro-movement of muscle and bone. Her uncle was skilled, perhaps the best duelist in the Empire. But he fought like someone who relied on vision. He telegraphed his attacks with visual feints, with posture changes that meant nothing to someone who couldn't see them. He attacked again, a flurry of strikes designed to overwhelm her defenses. Valara blocked and parried, her blades moving on pure instinct and training. She felt the rhythm of his assault, found the gaps in his pattern, and drove her blade forward. It caught him on the shoulder, drawing first blood. The crowd gasped. The blind princess had wounded the regent. Her uncle's attacks became more aggressive, more desperate. He was trying to end the fight quickly now, trying to use his superior strength and experience to crush her. But desperation made him sloppy. His patterns became more obvious, his movements more predictable. Valara adjusted her strategy. She stopped defending and started attacking. She drove forward, her blades moving in complex patterns that Vex had taught her, patterns designed to confuse and disorient. Her uncle gave ground, forced back by the unexpected ferocity of her assault. "You can't win," he snarled. "You're blind. You're weak. You're nothing." "Then why are you bleeding?" she replied. His rage made him careless. He lunged forward with a powerful overhead strike, committing too much weight to the attack. Valara sensed it coming, dropped low, and drove her blade upward. It pierced his side, sliding between ribs, finding vital organs. Her uncle staggered back, blood pouring from the wound. He dropped one of his blades, pressed his hand to his side. "Impossible," he whispered. "Not impossible," Valara said. "Just unexpected." He collapsed to his knees, and the arena fell silent. Valara stood over him, her blade ready for the killing stroke. She could end it now. She could finish him and claim her throne. But she hesitated. "Why?" her uncle gasped. "Why aren't you finishing it?" "Because killing you makes you a martyr," Valara said. "I want you to live. I want you to face trial for your crimes. I want the Empire to see you for what you really are." She turned away from him and addressed the High Council. "I invoke my right as victor of this trial. I claim the throne of the Zetharian Empire, and I demand that the regent be tried for treason, for attempted murder, and for crimes against the state." The head counselor stood, her ancient voice carrying across the arena. "The trial is concluded. Princess Valara has proven her right to rule. The evidence presented by Commander Vex will be examined, and the former regent will face trial for his alleged crimes." The crowd erupted. Some cheered, some jeered, but the political reality was undeniable. Valara had won. She had reclaimed her throne. And she had done it without hiding her blindness, without pretending to be something she wasn't. She had done it by being exactly who she was. Connor met her at the arena exit, and she could sense the relief and pride radiating from him. "You did it," he said. "You actually did it." "We did it," she corrected. "I wouldn't be alive without you." "What happens now?" Valara thought about that question. What did happen now? She was Empress of the Zetharian Empire. She had power beyond measure. She could do anything she wanted. "Now," she said slowly, "we build something better. An empire that doesn't measure worth by physical ability. An alliance with Earth built on mutual respect instead of conquest. A future where being different isn't a weakness." "That's ambitious, I know. But I'm the blind princess who just defeated the greatest warrior in the Empire. If I can do that, I can do anything." They walked through the palace corridors, and Valara felt the weight of her new responsibility settling on her shoulders. She was Empress now. The throne was hers. But the real work was just beginning. Her uncle's trial lasted 3 weeks. The evidence Vex had provided was irrefutable. The former regent was convicted of treason and attempted murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in the deep colonies, stripped of his titles and honors. Valara attended the sentencing, and when her uncle was led away in chains, she felt no satisfaction, just sadness for what might have been if he had chosen loyalty over ambition. The months that followed were filled with political reconstruction. Valara appointed new counselors, ones who had proven themselves during her exile. She promoted Vex to Grand Marshal, giving him command of the imperial military. She established diplomatic relations with Earth, signing a non-aggression treaty and opening trade negotiations. And she kept Connor at her side, not as a servant, but as her chief advisor. The nobles protested at first, scandalized that a human would have such influence. But Valara was unmoved. She had learned that true strength wasn't about conforming to expectations. It was about having the courage to be different. One year after reclaiming her throne, Valara stood on the palace balcony overlooking the capital city. Connor stood beside her, as he always did now. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors she couldn't see but could feel in the warmth on her skin. "Do you ever regret it?" Connor asked, taking the throne. "You could have gone to Earth, started a new life, been free of all this responsibility." "Every day," Valara admitted. "But regret doesn't mean I made the wrong choice. It just means I understand the cost." Was it worth it? She thought about that question. She thought about the reforms she'd implemented, the lives she'd improved, the war she'd prevented. She thought about the children who would grow up in an empire that valued capability over conformity, where being different wasn't automatically seen as being less. "Yes," she said, "it was worth it." Connor was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I received orders from Earth. They want me to return home. My assignment here is technically complete." Valara's tendrils went rigid.
"Are you going?" "That depends. You're Empress now."
"You can make your own rules. If you command me to stay, Earth will have to accept it. I won't command you. That's not how friendship works. You have to choose." She felt him shift, turning to face her directly. "Then I choose to stay, if you'll have me." Relief flooded through her. "Of course I'll have you. You're my eyes, Connor. More than that, you're my friend. I need you here." "Good, because I need to be here. This is where I belong." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city below. Valara couldn't see the lights beginning to glow in windows, couldn't see the traffic moving through the streets, couldn't see the empire she now ruled. But she didn't need to see it. She could feel it, alive and vibrant and full of possibility. She had been alone for so long. The blind princess, isolated by her disability and her position, but she wasn't alone anymore. She had Connor. She had her allies. She had an entire empire that she was slowly teaching to see past surface judgments. "Connor," she said softly, "thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for being here when no one else was. Your Highness, you never needed me to save you. You saved yourself. I just helped you see it. That's not true. I did need you. I still need you. Then I'll stay, for as long as you need me." Valara smiled, something she rarely did. But here, on this balcony with her friend beside her, it felt natural. Forever might be a long time. Forever works for me. The sun set completely, and the city below blazed with light. Valara couldn't see it, but she could feel it in the air, in the vibrations of life continuing its eternal dance. She was Empress of the Zetharian Empire. She was blind. She was powerful. She was different. And she was exactly where she needed to be. The future stretched ahead, full of challenges and obstacles and moments of doubt. But Valara wasn't afraid anymore. She had proven that blindness wasn't weakness. She had shown the Empire that different didn't mean lesser. And she had found something she thought she'd never have. She had found someone who saw her not as a disability to be managed or a problem to be solved, but as a person worth standing beside. She had found her eyes, and through those eyes, she had learned to see herself clearly for the first time. Not as the blind princess, not as the broken heir, but as Valara, Empress of the Zetharian Empire, warrior, leader, and friend. And that was enough.